If you want to make money selling on Amazon FBA or selling on your own Shopify store, your success hinges on one crucial decision: finding the right supplier. Make the right call, and you'll be dealing with top quality products at great prices. Make a mistake, and you could be stuck with expensive, low quality items that no one wants. And here's where it gets interesting. There are three key players on the global stage when it comes to suppliers: Japan, China, and India. Each country brings something special to the table, and in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into what makes each of these countries a viable option for your e-commerce business. I'll break down the pros and cons of suppliers from Japan, China, and India in terms of product quality, pricing, and ease of communication. You'll also learn where to find suppliers from all these countries as well. But before we begin, I just want to give a special thanks to Super Delivery for sponsoring this video, and I just want to emphasize that the information in this video is based on my own experiences as well as the experiences of my colleagues from my mastermind groups. If you look hard enough, you can find great suppliers in any country in the world, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Let's first start with product quality. My favorite country in the world to source products of the highest quality is Japan. Japanese suppliers are known for their commitment to precision and reliability, and products manufactured in Japan adhere to rigorous quality control standards that focus on durability, functionality, and longevity. It's just in their DNA and culture, and if you ever visit Japan, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Everything is well packaged, cute, and presented with the utmost of care. And in the 17 years that I've run my 7-figure e-commerce store over at bumblebeelinens.com, product quality from Japan has always been excellent, and the Japanese suppliers that I've worked with don't cut corners. If they send you a sample, then your production run will be made exactly like the sample. Japan also has strict labor laws and regulations, ensuring that products are manufactured under ethical conditions, which is a big deal if you are a socially conscious e-commerce business. Now contrast that to China, where supplier quality is much more hit or miss. I've had samples made in China before that were amazing, but then the production run quality was horrific. If you work with a Chinese factory, you absolutely must hire an inspector to inspect your goods in China before they are shipped. Now, in my last video on sourcing from Japan, I was asked whether there's an Alibaba-like directory of suppliers in Japan. And the answer, unfortunately, is no. Sourcing from Japan is much more difficult than sourcing from China or India because most Japanese suppliers, especially the smaller ones, do not have a strong online presence, and they are hard to find. And culturally speaking, they also aren't as used to outsourcing and exporting compared to countries like China. Many Japanese companies prefer in-house production to ensure quality control, which limits their production capacity. And finally, there's a language barrier. The predominant language in Japanese business is Japanese, and unlike suppliers in China or India, who always have someone who speaks English, oftentimes you'll encounter Japanese suppliers that only speak Japanese. So how do you find Japanese suppliers? The closest Alibaba-like directory for Japanese suppliers that I've come across is Super Delivery. Now you can get more information about Super Delivery in my last video here, but basically they are a B2B wholesale e-commerce website that makes importing from Japan super easy. They handle all the shipping to your country, payments to suppliers, and all negotiations on behalf of sellers to allow small businesses from anywhere in the world to safely trade with Japanese manufacturers. Now, the only downside to Super Delivery is that it's only a small fraction of the size of Alibaba. Alibaba has approximately 200,000 suppliers on the platform, whereas Super Delivery only has about 1,600 suppliers. Alibaba also offers hundreds of millions of products, whereas Super Delivery only offers about 700,000 products. But the big difference is that all the suppliers on Super Delivery are vetted very carefully, and they all sell high-quality goods. Furthermore, buying from Japanese companies through Super Delivery is just like buying from Amazon.com. You simply create an account on their platform, go shopping, and there are no minimum purchase amounts or quantity restrictions. Also, if you register for Super Delivery using the link below, you will get 3,000 yen off your first purchase, which is about $20. Now, after you buy, your products will arrive at your doorstep, and you don't have to speak or negotiate with anyone. Now, this is in direct contrast to buying from Alibaba, where you have to first reach out to a supplier using Alibaba's messaging system, negotiate on costs, and describe exactly what you want to buy. Oftentimes, suppliers on Alibaba will completely ignore your emails, and the whole buying experience is much more tedious. In some cases, it can take you months just to narrow down your product specifications and agree to a price. In addition, the photos on Alibaba may not be representative of what you'll actually receive. Sometimes suppliers in Alibaba use photos from prior production runs with their customers, or simply use photos from existing Amazon listings on their profile. Meanwhile, on Super Delivery, you will receive exactly what is pictured in the listing. Now, the main benefit of Super Delivery is that brand new online stores can source from Japanese manufacturers in small quantities, even if you're on a budget. You make payment in US dollars, and all customer support is in English. They also have a 14-day refund policy, unlike suppliers you'll find on Alibaba. But there is an important restriction with Super Delivery that you need to be aware of. Super Delivery is a platform designed only for businesses and not for consumer use. You can't just go on there and shop like you can on Alibaba or AliExpress. Super Delivery checks to make sure that you run a real business, and they'll ask you for your business information in the application. And sometimes approval can take up to a week because they genuinely check every single applicant. Now personally, I view this as a good thing because it means that they run careful checks on their suppliers as well. And for all of you who want to dropship, sorry, it's not allowed on Super Delivery. You can't just list a product on Amazon and have Super Delivery fulfill it. But outside of that, buying from Super Delivery is a lot like shopping on Amazon.com or any other online store, except that you are saving up to 70% off the retail price. You simply look for what you want to buy and click Add to Cart, and when you're done shopping, go on Go to Cart and then click Checkout. As long as your order does not exceed $800, you won't have to pay any taxes or duties either. Now, in my last video on sourcing from Japan, some of you commented that many of the products on Super Delivery are actually made in China. And this is true. But you must realize that product quality has nothing to do with where the product is physically made, and more about how meticulous the supplier is at making sure every product is consistent and well made. Now, in my first job out of college, I worked with a Japanese printing company, and they were easily the most demanding and detail-oriented company that I've ever worked with. And compared to other print companies in the US and Europe, this Japanese printer manufacturer demanded rigorous testing for all the electronics that I designed, including stress testing every computer board in crazy conditions like a hot oven for 6 straight months before they would sign off on the finished product. Quality control and consistent quality is Japan's strength, even if the products are not necessarily physically made in the country. So overall, in terms of quality, I would rank Japan number 1 way at the top, followed by China and India. Factories in China and India are pretty close in terms of quality, but I'm giving India a slightly lower score than China because in general, their production capabilities are not as mature. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you sign up for my free 6-day e-commerce mini course below, where I go into much more depth about product sourcing. Now let's talk about cost next. The cheapest country to source products from is India because the cost of labor is significantly lower than both China and Japan. Just for comparison, the cost of labor in China is 4 to 5x lower than Japan. And India's cost of labor is about 2x lower than China on average. This minimum wage graph explains it all. The average minimum monthly wage is about $170 a month in India compared to about $360 per month in China. The US is also in a trade war with China. During the Trump era, the president imposed heavy tariffs on many product categories ranging from 10 to 25%, which still exist today and probably aren't going away anytime soon. These heavy tariffs have caused many companies to move their manufacturing operations to other countries to avoid the extra taxes. And one of the biggest beneficiaries of the tariffs has been India. Even though wages are low, the problem with sourcing from India is that they don't make every kind of product well. India excels at leatherworking, and they are the world's second largest exporter of leather products. They're also a major producer and exporter of textiles such as cotton, silk, and wool, and India's textile industry is one of the largest in the world. In addition, India offers a wide variety of products made of steel, ceramics, and bamboo. So overall, if you sell textiles, India will probably be the cheapest place to look for suppliers, followed by China and Japan. Japan will probably be the most expensive place to source products from out of the 3 countries because their labor costs are significantly higher. However, pure price is not everything. I've been sourcing products from all over the world for 17 years now, and you also have to factor in the cost of quality control and your mental well-being. Whenever I source from China or India, I'm always paranoid about getting shipped poor quality or inconsistent products, even with factories that I've worked with for years. Even though you can hire an inspector to inspect your goods before they are shipped, An inspector cannot save you from time lost due to a failed production run. One time, we had a shipment of aprons that we absolutely needed to be delivered before the holidays, but our factory in China screwed up our order. Even though our inspectors caught the mistake in China and we didn't have to pay for the faulty aprons, we didn't receive our aprons in time for the holidays and we lost a lot of money in sales we would have had. The moral of the story here is never underestimate the importance of consistent quality. Reliability and the speed of production is why we source from both the US and Japan, in addition to China, India, and other parts of Europe. You never want a quality issue to prevent you from having products in hand to sell. Now, the final factor to consider when finding a supplier is communication and service. And keep in mind that what I'm about to say is based on my own experiences. Every country has factories that communicate well and offer excellent service. Now, first off, it's extremely difficult to find a Japanese factory to work with directly on your own. Unless you have boots on the ground in Japan and you speak the language, you probably aren't going to be able to find a supplier by yourself. But as long as you stick with a marketplace like Super Delivery, the service and communication will be excellent as long as you can find a supplier on their website. Now, finding suppliers in India is also much harder than finding suppliers in China because there is no Alibaba-like directory for India suppliers. Now, the good news is that unlike China, many factories in India actually have websites that you can browse and find online using Google. But overall, my experience with communication and service with factories in India has been worse than China, and I believe it has to do with the business culture. Business culture in China is highly driven by competition and rapid response to market demands. They're hungry for your business. Indian businesses, however, have much more layers of bureaucracy and a different pace of decision making. And in my experience, the Indian factories that I've worked with tend to take forever to respond compared to Chinese factories. The pace just seems a little bit slower in India. But the million-dollar question is, what countries should you source from? Now, personally, I'm biased towards quality because I've wasted so much of my time and energy dealing with poor quality control over the years from Chinese factories. As a result, my first choice is to always look at Japanese suppliers first to see if there are any products I can sell and make a decent profit. Now, the prices are going to be higher, but you'll almost never have to worry about quality. Good Japanese factories are hard to find, but Super Delivery is a great place to look. Now, if you have the patience, you can often get the lowest prices from Indian suppliers, especially if you sell textiles, ceramics, and metalwork. And you won't have to pay any tariffs because trade between the US and India is much friendlier. Now, for everything else, I work with Chinese factories because China literally makes every type of product imaginable and the export infrastructure is very mature. Now that you know about sourcing from the different countries, make sure you watch this video here for more in-depth information on sourcing from Japan.